Good day, and welcome to another Korean experience, TaLK experience in Korea video. Yes, yes. So in the previous one, I told you about Pop Burger, but I forgot to tell you. I spoke a little bit. So the last bit of the last video was a Pop Burger, and I said patties are replaced with rice. It's just the other way around. The bread bits are rice, and then there's a meat patty for the burger, a rice burger, basically. So just putting that out there. And that was the previous video was my first few hours in Gochang. So what happened immediately, what happened after the whole Gochang thing, after I got dropped off and everything, I was like packing out and putting my clothes away and everything, and it's all quiet in the house. Like really in my apartment, it's all quiet, you know. And I'm like, okay, I'm here. I know nobody, and the teacher, Suyon, told me, the co-teacher told me, like, that's where I buy my bus pass stuff. She showed me, like, on that corner, and just across from the one, it was a 7-Eleven, I think. She was like, just across from there is the bus station and all that. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I was like, okay, so what I need to do, because I've got no internet, I've got no phones, I don't have a phone as of yet. I was slumming it, really, literally slumming it. So what happened was I was like, okay, you know what? The phone that I have, I literally had it set to Korean Standard Time, and that was my alarm. Didn't use my phone. The Wi-Fi was a bit bad where I was at, so I couldn't use my phone to access the internet whatsoever. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna slum it until I get my hands on a phone, or until I get to a PC bung, which is our next topic. So what happens? I pack everything off. I shower again. Realize that I'm running out of shower stuff, shampoo, soap, all those things. And I realized that I'd have probably about 3 or 4 days worth of this stuff. And I know that, like, okay, now I need to start looking where I can buy these kind of things. And I get out from the stairs, and I look across from me. I look at the street, and I'm like, cool, there's a chicken place next to me. Literally, like, I get out from the stairs, there's a chicken place right there. I'm like, cool, that's a chicken place. And I look around, and I see, like, sort of a gym thing going on at one of the buildings. There's like a gym. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I look down the street to my left hand side. I'm like, that's the direction of the bus terminal. That's the convenience store that I see, the small 7-Eleven. And next to it is a CS4U, like literally next to it is a C4SU, whatever. Right there, CU, whatever. And I'm like, okay, let me just walk in the direction, because I need to know where this bus terminal is. And I start walking and walk past a Hyundai Motors mechanic garage, or mechanics garage, or whatever you want to call it. Like, not a chop shop, but, you know, they fix cars there. Walk a bit, and walk past the bank. What was it called? Was it Hanaro Bank? Walk past that, and I'm like, okay, cool. This is quite cool. Walk past the street that I would walk down many a times. I didn't know it yet, but I would walk down that street many a times in the coming months, in the coming 2 years. And the downtown area, like, basically I was living in downtown Gochang. Get to the bus station, I'm like, cool, bus station, cool. And I look at the schedules, and remember, I don't read Korean. I look at the schedules, and I'm like, Shim 1, I know what it looks like, so I'm going to look for that. And I look for on the boards, and there's like 4 or 5 boards, and there's like one that says Shim 1, and it tells me the hours. I'm like, okay, cool, I need to be at school at that stage, so I'm going to try and at least leave 2 hours, because I don't know how far it is. So I'm like, I'm going to at least leave 2 hours before my time starts. I'm going to go there just to, I'll prepare myself for that. And I'm like, okay, cool, I found it. And at the bus terminal was a PC bung. And I'm like, okay, let's walk into the PC bung and chill there for a few. And go in there, man, it is manky. It was really, really crap. It was basically, I believe that's the PC bung kids went to when they came home or whatever. It wasn't a very clean PC bung, you know. Their toilets was a constant. It was just dirty, but it was a PC bung. So I sat there, and I played some games, and I checked on. I most of the time, I checked on Facebook. You know, contacted my parents. I'm like, listen, everything is okay, everything is good, and they're like, when can we talk? I'm like, yeah, no, we can talk as soon as I get everything set up and everything. And they're like, no, it's fine. And I immediately started working out, started trying to figure out, okay, cool, what's going on here? You know, what's going on around me? So I spent some time in the PC bung, eat some food there, get some coffee. 2 or 3 nights I spend time there. Hey, welcome again. This is Zephyr from the future. I'm interrupting this video to just do a bit of a change in the storyline because, let me tell you, because I don't edit these things, and I do edit it, obviously, you can see it now, but because I don't write down a script or my memories, I just go like ad-lib in these videos. Some of the details are sometimes wrong. So the next bit that you're hearing, I'm keep on referring to the Monday. This was incorrect. So what happened is I got there on the Wednesday. I got in Gochang on the Wednesday, and I was speaking to the woman and everything, and I was speaking to Soo Yon and everything, and she basically told me, like, you need to be at school on Monday. And I was like, you know what, let's just make a good first impression, and I decided to go to school on the Friday. So, and I told her, listen, I'm going to be there on Friday because I want to just see where it is and everything. And she was like, no, Monday. And I'm like, no, I'll be there on Friday. I want to get introduced to everybody and everything. So everything that happened that day that I told you about, that's going to happen now, that I'm going to talk to you about, is literally that happened on the Friday, on the day that I didn't even have to go to school. They expected me on the Monday. So everything from the lunch and everything that happens on the first day, and of course the next video will reflect this, happened on the Friday before I had to go to school, actually officially on the Monday. This is a long video, I'm sorry, but I just thought I'd correct myself in the middle of the video and enjoy the rest of it. And it's my first work day. Let's say Monday was the first day that I had to go to school. So I get up. You know, I'm reasonably certain of everything, what's going on around me. I know where to buy my cigarettes. I know where to buy everything. And I believe I found a packet there called This Africa. And it was This Africa Ruler. And I started smoking that, and I'm like, this is quite tasty. It's slightly minty taste. It's got a little ball, and I'm not a fan of the cigarettes with the ball thing, so I'm like, you know what, I'll just break it every now and again just to see what it is. And I break it, and I feel like it's this weird taste. I can't really quite place it. So I'm like, okay, you know what, this is cool. I'm going to stick with this. This is the brand I know, and I'm used to this brand and whatever. Smoke that and everything. That's my cigarette choice. Still drank coffee with milk and sugar. And the Monday morning, I get ready. I'm in a suit. I'm in a freaking suit to get ready for school, you know. So I get to the bus terminal, and I start looking around, and I'm like, okay. And I look at the sign, and I'm like, okay, I need to get on Shim 1. So I look at the other sign. I'm like, but this one also says Shim 1. And I look at the other sign. I was like, oh, crap, there's 3 buses going to the same spots. I need to go to the one that's actually, oh crap, which one do I choose? Which one do I choose? And I start freaking out, not visibly, I start freaking out. And I'm like looking around, and I see a clothing store, and I'm like, cool, that's a clothing store. And all of a sudden, this Korean woman comes out of nowhere. And she's like, hi, good day, can I help you? I'm like, yeah, I'm looking for Shim 1. I need to get to Shim 1. I'm afraid I'm going to be late. And she's like, oh, no, 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 don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. And she walks with me and she points me to the one thing. She's like, no, you got to look at this board. This is the one you look at, and you got to do the Shimwan. You see the name Shimwan, it'll show it on the bus. It'll say Shimwan. I'm like, nice. Going to do that. And I look and I see and I tell her thank you and everything. She's like, no, no problem. Very good English. Very, very good English. No problem. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm sitting there and I look at the sign and I look at the buses coming in. And remember, I'm overweight, so I get hot very easily. I'm in a suit. I don't like it. I'd like to be more comfortable, but anyway, I'm in a suit. I need to make good first impressions. Look at the board, look at the bus, look at the board, look at the bus. And the bus pulls up, or where the bus should stop. And the bus pulls up, and it doesn't say Shimwan on the front. I look at the board, and I'm like, okay, cool. This is not the bus I need to get on. This is not my bus. This ain't my bus, yo. And I'm like, okay. And I wait, and I wait. And all of a sudden, that English Korean woman runs up to me, runs to the bus, talks to the driver, and she comes up to me and she's like, get on this bus. I'm like, ugh! Get on the bus. And I'm sitting there. And we're on this bus road. Now, the countryside of Korea, if you've never experienced this, this is freaking amazing. So I'm going to tell you what I know about the route, but up until like that point, I did not know anything about the route. So we're driving rice paddies, rice fields, whatever you want to call them. We're driving past them. We're driving around mountains. And I'm getting motion sickness. But I'm holding on. And I'm getting motion sickness. And I'm like, okay, but it's okay. And at some point they stop. They turn off into an area called Sonunsa, which is basically Sonnen Temple. And that is one of their stops. And I'm like, okay, cool, this is Sonnen Temple. I'll probably at some point in the near future come and visit this. And we drive, and this was after about 20, 30 minutes driving. And I'm like, okay, Sonnen Temple, Sonunsa, I'll try and remember that. And we stopped there, and I'm like, Shimwan? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then I realized eventually that is Sonnen Temple, or Sonunsa. And we continue on driving. Yes, and we're driving for a while, and at some point, we're next to the ocean. And I'm like, when I say next to the ocean, is I can see the ocean. I can literally see it's like, it's the ocean and then another part of Korea. I'll get the names of the cities correctly for you, but it's like, okay, cool. It's like a little inlet of ocean. And it's also the mud fields. They call it the mud fields there or something like that. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm like, oh, crap. I've been on this bus for more than 30 minutes and we're still not near where I need to get off. And we're driving. And at some point, we're driving next to a river. And there's, again, rice fields next to me and the rolling, hilly landscape. Not obviously the ocean side, but on the left-hand side of me. Rolling landscape and this slight fog. You're going to hear the fog thing or mist thing being a permanent theme. Slightly foggy thing. Fog covering, like a light fog covering the grounds. And sorry about that. And at some point, I'm like, I know the teacher told me something about a cross. And she's like, when you see the cross, you need to get off. And I see, like, in the distance, a church comes up with a big-ass cross. And I'm like, okay. And I'm starting to look around. I don't see any schools. It's still fields next to me. And I'm like, there's the cross. I need to get off. I need to get off now. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I need to get off now. I need to get off now. But I'm sitting on the bus going, on the next stop, I'm going to get off. And the guy stops, and I start moving, and the driver's just, Anio. No. And I'm like, okay. And I sit down again. They just picked someone up. And I'm like, okay. And we drive, and we hit this small town. Literally, this school, it's this small town. It's like, you see a couple of houses on the sides, on both sides. And then you see, like, immediately the road changes to like, this is a busy road. This is like there's street lights, and there's signs on the road, and there's like lines and a freaking zebra crossing or a walkway or a whatever crosswalk. And we stop at the one thing, and the bus driver is just like, Shimon, Songseng Nim Shimon, here. And I'm like, what? Whoa! And I get off. And I'm getting off of the bus drives away. And I'm like, oh Lord. And I start looking around. I'm like, what's, okay, I'm going to walk until I find a school. And I look in front of me, and there's a house. And I look slightly to the side, and there's the school. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I start walking, walk to the front gate of the school, walk in. So what immediately happens is there's like this gravel road from the school entrance going around. Then it turns into basically parking and a building, which I would later find out is the gym for the school gym or the school hall. Would I later find out that that's a very important building in the future in another video. And then it goes up into this slight incline, and that's the front of the school. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I walk there, got my backpack, nice blue shirt. I'll probably show you the suit in the future, in the near future, of what I look like on my first day. Obviously with less beard and less hair. But so I walk into the school, and there's nothing. It's this giant hallway where, like how Korean housing works, if you don't know, is there's a section where you take off your shoes and you wear indoor shoes, right? So I've got my slippers. I'm ready. I've got my slippers. Oh, another story about slippers in the future. A lot of hints into what's going to happen in the future videos here. So I'm like, okay, cool. Get to these. They've got these little cubicles, these little tiny wooden lockers that you just open up, put shoes in, take shoes out, and And I'm like, cool. And I opened the one locker, put my shoes in. It was still the crappiest freaking shoes I could wear for walking and everything. You don't want to walk in those shoes, and I walked in them everywhere. And I'm like, cool, slipper time. Get my slippers on. Slippers from South Africa. Keep that in mind, because that is again part of a future thing. And I'm like, okay, I stand there with my backpack and get my shoes on, step on the wooden floor. There is, right in front of me is a staircase leading to the second floor, and it's got like a bunch of English words. I can't really remember what the English words were, but a bunch of English words on the stairs that if you look at the stairs, you see the words, and it's like, and next to it, the Korean meaning of the words, I guess. And I'm like, okay, cool. So this is the stairs up. And I'm sitting there going, am I on the ground floor? Is my classroom on the ground floor? Is my classroom, what's going on? What's going on? And the whole time I'm thinking of that woman also who helped me. And I'm like, wow, if I meet her again, I'm going to definitely thank her and buy her something, And the bell rings. And I'm standing there, and there's a bunch of kids that like walks what happens is a teacher walks out. She sees me, her eyes go big, and she's like, oh, 안녕하세요. And I'm like, oh, 안녕하세요. And she's like, I'm like, okay, now I'm walking. And I'm walking with the kids, and the kids are all muttering in Korean and pointing at me. They're tiny. I'm saying, like, later I'd find out that they were like grade 1 or 2. They're tiny, and they're like, ne, songseng nim, ne, yongo, songseng. I'm like, oh, I know yongo, and I know songseng nim, so they're probably talking about me. And we're walking down this hallway, and we walk past the teacher's office, the teacher's room, whatever you want to call it, where the headmaster sits and everything. And where people do their things. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. This is gonna be interesting. Okay. And we're walking, standing there in line. And I'm standing in line behind the kids, and Suyeon sees me, and she's like, oh, Zaffa, not really Zaffa, my real name. She's like, oh, Zaffa, come. And I'm like, ah! I'm freaking out. There's kids here. I don't know them from Jack, and I'm getting the stares from everyone like, "Ooh, this is the new English teacher." Ooh, ooh. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, it's decent. I'll just go." And we walk outside of the building, a bit of open air thing with a aftaki. What's an aftaki in English? With a just like a bit of a ceiling thing, but you're outside. You know, like a bit of a shade sort of roofing thing. And we get into the building, and this is where I got introduced to the cafeteria. And I'm like, okay. And Suyon is like, no, 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 you're going to come with me and I'm going to show you what you do. And we wash our hands and we drink some water, go stand in the queue, get food. I don't remember my first meal, but it was most likely rice, some seaweed, it was some deep fried stuff. I remember it was deep fried stuff, rice, seaweed, and kimchi, and a nice little bit of juice that you could get next to it. And I'm like, okay, cool. And the woman behind the thing looking at me, eyes go big, and she starts pouring everything on. I'm like, oh crap, I have to eat everything. I have to eat everything. And I did, because as I told you in the previous one, I was a poor bastard my first month and a half. My first month of working. I was a really poor bastard. So I started just eating everything that they gave me there, aside from a couple of things. But anyway, so we start eating, and me and Suyon talks and everything, and she's the only one talking to me. She's sitting across from me. I'm so, we're talking, because I believe like the big thing that second language speakers don't know, second language English speakers don't know, just try and speak English. If you fail, it's good. It means you're learning. But anyway, so I'm talking with her, and she's the only one that's talking to me. We're sitting with the teachers, and I've greeted all of them, and we start eating. I take my chopsticks, and I start eating, and the one person mentions something to her, and she looks at me, and she's like, they say you're a real Korean. You can eat with chopsticks. I'm like, okay, that's a thing apparently. I'm a real Korean now, and I eat with chopsticks and everything. And so they wanted to like, hey, do you want a spoon or something? I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm going to eat with chopsticks. I'm going to be in this culture, and I'm going to do as this culture does. Oh, crap, that's a long video. And we ate, and then I'll tell you the story after lunch in the next video. Yeah, it's quite a long one. This is quite a long one. So thank you, everybody, for watching, and I'll see you in the next Korean video.